I married Nathan Winstone in a classic business arrangement. After the wedding, we established 3 simple rules: live our own lives, stay out of each other's business, and maintain the facade for half a year. We followed this unspoken agreement without a hitch until our first loves returned from abroad at a banquet one evening. I couldn't help but glance a little longer at David Smith, my former flame. Just as I was about to look away, a voice suddenly echoed in my mind, "Wife, stop looking at him." I froze, startled. The voice was unmistakably Nathan's, though his lips hadn't moved. Before I could process this strange phenomenon, another voice broke in. "This one belonged to David, my ex-boyfriend. Quit staring. She's mine now. Look again, and I'll remind you who her husband is." Welcome to HEAS channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. The story begins. The banquet hall brimmed with clinking glasses and polite chatter. But amidst the noise, Nathan Winstone's inner voice came through loud and clear. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of my imagination, perhaps a side effect of too much champagne. But then it happened again. "Wife, you look so adorable after drinking. I really want to kiss her. Wait, why is she looking at me like that?" I didn't even say anything out loud. I glanced up at Nathan, confused and stunned, trying to confirm whether I was hallucinating. He met my gaze, his expression cool as ever, revealing nothing. Forcing myself to remain calm, I quickly looked away, hiding my shock beneath a practiced facade. Everyone in Sea City knew the nature of my marriage to Nathan Winstone. It was no secret our union was a cold, calculated business arrangement. Nathan was known for his aloof demeanor, reserved for all but one person, Alice Winstone, his foster sister and the rumored object of his affections. The whispers were unrelenting how Nathan had wanted Alice, how their sibling status had made that impossible. I was just the stand-in wife, a convenient arrangement to fulfill both our families' needs. Nathan had never called me wife in private, much less with such endearing warmth. Yet now, his thoughts were echoing in my mind, repeating that intimate word over and over. Was it possible that seeing Alice's closeness with someone else tonight had shifted something in him? Before I could make sense of it all, Nathan took my hand and led me toward David Smith and Alice Winstone. Standing in front of David, I maintained a composed expression despite the storm of emotions brewing inside me. I raised my champagne glass with practiced grace. "Mr. Smith, long time no see," I greeted him lightly. David's intense gaze bore into me, his eyes ablaze with an unspoken fire that left me feeling exposed. He ignored my polite address, instead shaking his head with a self-deprecating smile. "Chelsea, you used to call me David," he said. His words fell like a stone into a calm lake, creating ripples that spread across the entire room. Heads turned, curious eyes watching us with a mix of fascination and hunger for gossip. Alice, sensing the tension, quietly slipped her arm away from David's. She turned to Nathan and me with a gentle smile. "Brother, sister-in-law," she greeted demurely. Nathan didn't respond. Instead, he stepped closer to me, slipping an arm around my waist with a forcefulness that caught me off guard. His grip tightened as he pulled me firmly into his embrace, leaving no room for escape. Raising my glass slightly, I gave a small, composed smile. "Mr. Smith," I replied coolly, "as you said, that was in the past." David faltered for a moment, his eyes clouded with emotions he couldn't conceal. He downed the rest of his champagne in one swift motion and said, "Excuse me, I have something to attend to," before walking away, his departure tinged with quiet desperation. I found my feet moving instinctively to follow him, but Nathan caught my hand, leaning in close. "Chelsea," he murmured in a low voice, "remember who you are." I frowned, remaining silent, but his inner voice spoke once more, flooding my mind with his thoughts. Was I too harsh? Did I scare her? That ex-husband of hers had the nerve to try to steal her away in front of me. Declaring my territory isn't out of line, right? Oh no, what if she leaves me? "Wife, please don't leave me. They say a good horse doesn't return to graze on old grass, right? Please don't fall for David Smith again." Testing the waters, I called out softly, "Nathan." He narrowed his eyes slightly, his expression cold and detached. His response was simple, "H." This was the Nathan I knew, aloof, restrained, and indifferent. Could I have imagined it all? Just then, Alice approached me, breaking the moment. "Sister-in-law," she said gently, "I need to speak with my brother for a moment. Would you mind giving us some space?" I nodded and offered a polite smile. "Of course. You two talk. I'll step outside for some air." I left them behind and made my way to the garden, the crisp night air cooling my flushed cheeks. Rounding a corner, I spotted David Smith standing under the dim glow of a street lamp, his tall frame cast in a pensive silhouette. Hearing my footsteps, he turned toward me, his expression shifting from calm to startled, with a flicker of quiet joy that he couldn't quite hide. Our eyes met, and for a long moment, neither of us said a word. I turned to leave, but his trembling voice stopped me in my tracks. "Chelsea," he called softly. "I never thought you'd actually get married." His eyes carried a mix of regret and sadness as he extinguished his cigarette and stepped closer. I stood frozen, watching him approach, my heart unnervingly calm. After we broke up, I followed my family's wishes and married Nathan in a whirlwind arrangement. Many times, I had imagined what it would be like to see David again. Would he regret not marrying me? Would he try to win me back? But none of it seemed to matter now. I was Nathan Winstone's wife, and that fact alone overshadowed everything else. Summoning a smile, I raised the hem of my gown and took a small step back. "Mr. Smith," I said, my tone detached, "you know better than anyone that the Winstone-Heaton marriage was a business deal." David, reeking of alcohol, his words slightly slurred, asked, "But do you love him?" "Chelsea, I told you I'd marry you. Why couldn't you wait for me?" I paused before responding, my smile bittersweet. "David Smith, what we had is in the past." A gust of wind swept through, and I tightened my shawl around my shoulders. I was reminded of the man I had once loved. Everyone knew about us for 6 years. I chased David Smith relentlessly, and for 6 months, we were together. They said I was the only one who could bring him down from his pedestal, the unattainable flower that I had managed to pluck. But no one expected me to end it. When my mother fell gravely ill, her dying wish was to see me married. At the time, David was far away in the US pursuing his doctorate in desperation. I flew to New York to demand that he marry me. That snowy night, I found him celebrating Alice Winstone's birthday, surrounded by friends. They laughed and teased about how perfect the two of them looked together. David didn't deny it, he simply smiled and kissed her, sealing the truth I couldn't ignore. Outside, the snowstorm held. Inside, their world was warm and radiant. David Smith lied to me. He claimed he was working late in the lab. In that moment, I knew it was over. When I returned home, I initiated the breakup. He didn't try to stop me. Just like that, we ended. I thought that was the last I'd see of him in this lifetime. But 6 months later, he returned to He country with Alice Winstone by his side. Tonight, Alice attended the banquet as David Smith's partner. It was clear to everyone that their families were trying to match them. As for Nathan Winstone's strange behavior this evening, I suspected it had everything to do with Alice. From what I knew, Alice went to the US for her PhD because of David, only for me to end up being the one who pursued and won his heart. Back then, when Nathan approached me to propose marriage, I assumed it was out of some desire to avenge Alice or to stand up for her after I took David away. But none of that mattered to me. After all, it was just a business arrangement. Who I married didn't make much difference. Only later did I realize that this so-called arranged marriage was part of Nathan Winstone's carefully laid plans. David, however, was unwilling to accept the fact that I had moved on. For the first time, he abandoned his pride and grabbed my hand desperately, his voice trembling. "Chelsea, listen to me. Please, there's nothing going on between Alice and me. It's not what you think." I frowned. The garden was empty now. But if anyone captured us like this pulling and tugging at each other, it could harm the reputations of all 3 families. I tried to pull my hand free, but David's grip was strong. His emotions spilled over, and he pressed me tightly into his chest. "Chelsea, I was wrong. Divorce Nathan. I know you don't love him. It's just a business marriage, right? The Smith family is no less than the Winstones. Let go." I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "David, you're clearly drunk, saying things that should never be spoken aloud." "No, Chelsea, I can't let go. I was too arrogant before. I thought you'd never leave me. That's why I—" "David Smith," I interrupted sharply, "we are over. I've told you this before. Let go now." "I can't. If I let go, you'll leave me forever," he muttered, refusing to release me no more. How hard I struggled. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of nowhere with a swift, powerful kick. David was knocked to the ground. Nathan Winstone's voice was cold as ice. "David Smith, my wife told you to let go. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear her?" The 2 men lunged at each other, fists flying. Chaos erupted as they grappled on the ground, neither holding back. "Stop it, both of you. Stop!" I shouted, rushing forward to break them apart. Nathan wiped the blood off his hand, his expression unreadable. His eyes scanned me carefully, and his voice softened. "Wife, are you hurt?" I shook my head, and he stepped forward, taking my hand and shielding me behind him. David stood, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, and let out a bitter laugh. Nathan Winstone, this is just like your family taking advantage of others' vulnerabilities. Chelsea should have been mine. If you hadn't swooped in while she was hurting, you'd have no right to stand here now. The tension between them crackled in the air, their gazes locked in a silent, furious battle. Sensing another fight brewing, I quickly stepped between them. That's enough, David Smith. You're drunk. David stared at me in disbelief. Chelsea, are you protecting him? Behind me, Nathan stood calm and composed, his demeanor a sharp contrast to his earlier aggression. It's late, wife. Let's go home, he said. But in my mind, his inner voice was a flurry of unspoken thoughts. Wife is amazing, fierce and protective of her husband. Tonight, we're definitely cuddling. Kiss my wife. New life goal, make her fall in love with me as soon as possible. Thanks, Alice, for stepping aside and helping me win this incredible woman. His last thought caught me off guard. Stepped aside? Could it be that I had misunderstood what happened between Alice and David back then? The situation quickly spiraled. David was forcibly escorted to the hospital by his family, with Alice going along to look after him. Nathan and I, on the other hand, were summoned back to the Winstone estate for an inevitable scolding. On the drive back, Nathan's thoughts continued their lively commentary, though I said nothing in response. This is progress, right? If wife didn't defend David, that means he's not that important to her anymore. Maybe tonight I can finally honestly say we should have never agreed to this whole separate lives deal after marriage. Time to renegotiate the terms. Is she looking at me? Quick check. Without being obvious, Nathan's glance flickered toward me, and our eyes met. He immediately looked away, trying to act nonchalant. I felt restless the entire drive, relieved only when we finally arrived at the estate. Inside, the elders of both families were seated on the living room sofa, their expressions heavy with judgment. The head of the Winstone family, Edward, fixed his sharp gaze on me. Chelsea, how was the banquet tonight? I knew this was the beginning of a lecture, so I hesitated, searching for the right words. Before I could speak, Nathan stepped in, pulling me behind him. Dad, it was the usual, just catching up with people from the circle. If you've heard anything, it's just exaggerated gossip. We know our boundaries and what's appropriate. Edward's gaze shifted toward the door as he asked, and your sister? She went to the hospital to see the Smith boy. Nathan replied flatly, yes. Edward nodded, not pressing further. Instead, he turned to my father with a sly smile. Your daughter, Chelsea, is remarkable. Not only has she captivated my son, but it seems the Smith boy can't let her go either. I stiffened, feeling the weight of their scrutiny, but Nathan gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Feigning exhaustion, he pulled me closer. Dad, we're tired. We're heading upstairs to rest. Edward gave him a knowing look and waved us off, allowing us to escape. When we stepped into the bedroom, we were greeted by a single bed in the center of the room. It was obvious the Winstone family had arranged this deliberately, not even a sofa was left as an alternative. Nathan Winstone and I exchanged an awkward glance. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. How should I say it? Should I just ask if we'll share the bed? We've been married for over 6 months. Sharing a bed isn't unreasonable, right? The entire Winstone family is watching us. Looks like we don't have much choice tonight. Finally, unable to endure his fidgeting any longer, I broke the silence. Nathan, let's just make do and sleep here for the night. His relief was palpable as he nodded quickly. All right. After taking a shower, I came out to find Nathan busily fussing with the bed covers, looking oddly flustered. First time sharing a bed with my wife. I'm a little nervous. What do I do? Never in my dreams did I think I'd not only marry Chelsea but also get to sleep next to her. This is heaven. I love her so much. I just want to kiss her right now. Watching him clumsily smooth out the sheets while his thoughts betrayed his excitement, I couldn't help but recall something my mother once told me before she passed. Chelsea, sometimes it's better to marry someone who loves you than someone you love. That day, she solemnly placed my hand in Nathan's and said, Nathan, I'm entrusting my daughter to your care. I hadn't understood her meaning then, but now, seeing Nathan like this, I started to wonder, could it be that Nathan had always liked me? It seemed far-fetched. Sure, the Heaton and Winstone families had maintained business ties for years, but I'd grown up secluded at my maternal grandparents' home due to my poor health. Before our arranged marriage, Nathan and I had never even met. Love at first sight unlikely. When my mother urged me to marry Nathan after my breakup with David, I agreed without much thought. It was ly convenient. Whatever. I pushed the thoughts aside, letting things unfold naturally. Nathan, turn off the lights. Let's sleep, I said, climbing into bed. But Nathan stood frozen by the bedside, cheeks flushed, his words stumbling. I. Okay. She's so beautiful. Why is it so hot in here? Noticing his increasingly strange behavior, my gaze shifted to the half-finished glass of milk on the table. Realization hit me, someone had spiked the drink. Nathan, I'm not feeling well, he muttered, his deep voice laced with frustration. I looked up to see him tugging at his robe, revealing more of his flushed skin. His eyes, dark and smoldering, locked onto me as he took a step forward. Before I could react, his large hand grabbed my ankle and pulled me toward him. I gasped, colliding with his firm waist. The heat radiating off his body startled me. You're burning up, I exclaimed. Before I could say anything more, his hand covered my mouth. From outside the door came faint noises, and I saw a flicker of clarity in his otherwise clouded eyes. His lips brushed against my ear, his voice low and magnetic. Can you scream? What I started to ask was interrupted by a sharp squeeze at my waist. A startled yelp escaped me. His lips brushed my ear as I turned red, refusing to meet his gaze. He chuckled, his tone unexpectedly gentle. There's someone outside. Play along. Realizing what he meant, I quickly followed his lead, letting out exaggerated sounds until the noises outside subsided. When silence returned, both of us were left in an awkward, heated state. Nathan braced himself above me, his breathing uneven. I turned my head away, unable to look at him. After a tense moment, he spoke hesitantly. Chelsea, can we what? I asked cautiously, make this real? He said, his voice almost pleading, this isn't in the contract. The atmosphere turned painfully awkward. His face darkened, and he stared at me with an intensity that only made his feelings more evident. Trying to lighten the mood, I teased, if you want to add this to the deal, we'll need to renegotiate the terms. It'll cost extra. His expression shifted instantly. A sly smile curved his lips. Whatever you want, it's yours, including me. Before I could respond, he leaned down, his warm lips trailing over my skin. But soon, his inexperience became apparent. Flustered and unsure, he stopped and looked at me, his face filled with embarrassment. I'm not in the right state. I want to dig a hole and bury myself. Unable to help myself, I poked his abs gently. It's okay. Don't overthink it. But my attempt at comfort only seemed to deflate him further. Shoulders slumped, he muttered something incoherent and retreated to the bathroom. When he emerged, he looked utterly defeated. This was the first time we'd been alone like this since our wedding, he said, walking out to the balcony. His back to me, he smoked a cigar. In the dim light, his figure appeared fragile, his sigh heavy in the still night. The clock ticked past 2 a.m., but his inner monologue remained relentless. This is so humiliating. What if she thinks I'm incapable? What if she wants a divorce? Why don't CEO stories ever talk about this? What am I supposed to do? Maybe I should check if she's asleep. Hearing him shuffle back toward the bed, I quickly pulled the covers over myself and shut my eyes. The bed dipped slightly as he climbed in, his movements careful. A strong arm slipped around my waist, pulling me into his chest. His heart was racing, and I could hear his thoughts as clear as day. She smells so good. I just want to hold her closer. Even in her sleep, she's beautiful. But why is she frowning? Is she upset? Maybe just one little kiss. She won't notice, right? His lips brushed against mine lightly, like a dragonfly skimming water. So sweet. Maybe one more kiss won't hurt. Chelsea, why? Oh, you're not stopping me, so I'll take that as a yes. Rolling my eyes internally, I thought, if you're so bold, why not just ask me outright? Unable to resist messing with him, I suddenly opened my eyes. Nathan, are you planning to sleep or not? His eyes lit up with excitement, and in a heartbeat, he pounced, pinning me beneath him. Sleep, he said enthusiastically. Wait, this isn't what I meant by sleep. And that was the moment I realized Nathan Winstone's earlier state was indeed a fluke. When I woke up, I saw Nathan Winstone standing in front of the mirror, meticulously styling the strands of hair on his forehead. His hands adjusted the lapels of his suit with precision. Catching sight of me stirring, he suppressed the joy tugging at the corners of his mouth. Wife, you're awake. Come over and help me with my tie. He looked impeccable, his broad shoulders and tapered waist perfectly accentuated by the tailored suit. I couldn't help but think to myself, actually, being married to him isn't so bad. I walked over and took the tie from his hands, carefully tying it for him. As I got closer, a faint fragrance drifted from him. Did you put on cologne? I asked, leaning in slightly to catch the scent. A fleeting look of unease crossed his face as his cheeks turned faintly red. Why? Don't you like it? His hands naturally found their way to my waist, pulling me closer. He leaned down, his lips brushing against my hair. Wife, I missed you. In my mind, I caught his amusing inner thoughts. How do the CEOs in romance novels pull off the domineering love moves? Woman, I suggest you stop being unreasonable. Woman, you're playing with fire. Woman, your eyes should never stray to any other man but me. Forget it, I'm not cut out for this role. If she runs away, I'll be forced to cry instead. Rolling my eyes, I teased, Nathan, I'm standing right here. No need to imagine me. Nathan maintained his composure, his smile grow ing softer. Wife, what's wrong? Can't I think about you just because you're right in front of me? I studied him closely. He really was handsome, sharp brows, deep-set eyes, a refined jawline. On top of that, he was eloquent, disciplined, and a brilliant businessman. This marriage, all things considered, was a winning deal for me. Aside from the fact that he seemed to have been brainwashed by over-the-top CEO romance novels lately, there wasn't much to complain about. Maybe staying married to him wouldn't be so bad after all. After we were both dressed, we headed downstairs for breakfast. Edward Winstone was sitting on the sofa, reading the news. When he saw us, he put down the paper and offered me a rare smile. Chelsea, since you've married into the Winstone family, we're all one family now. I trust one don't need to remind you how you should manage your heart and conduct yourself. He glanced briefly at Nathan before continuing, my silly son is truly devoted to you. I hope you won't let him down. Live your lives well, give me a big, healthy grandson, and I'll leave you young people to your own devices in the future. The weight of this family will rest on both your shoulders. It was a thinly veiled reminder of my role. Lowering my eyes, I responded politely and kept my emotions in check. Nathan, however, laced his fingers through mine, lightly rubbing my palm. His brow furrowed slightly as he spoke in a calm tone. Dad, we're doing well. You don't need to interfere in our matters. Edward waved dismissively. I don't like meddling in your affairs, but you injured the Smith family's precious grandson last night. You broke 2 of his ribs, and he's still recovering in the hospital. Both courtesy and decency require you to visit him. Nathan's lips curled in mild irritation. Outwardly, he nodded, but his inner voice betrayed him. David Smith started the fight, and he's terrible at it too. I already went easy on him. Breaking only 2 ribs That's me being kind. Serves him right for coveting my wife. After some deliberation, we decided it was best to visit David Smith at the hospital, given the long-standing business ties between our families. Through the glass window of the hospital room, I saw David lying in bed, his face pale and sullen. He radiated displeasure, his brows knitted tightly. Beside him, Alice Winstone sat with a small knife, meticulously peeling an apple. She cut it into neat slices, arranged them on a plate, and placed it in front of him. David, however, shoved the plate away with a scowl. What is this? Did your brother send you to babysit me? Do you ever stop treating his words like gospel? Alice, his tone was sharp, almost venomous. When I went to the US for my PhD, your brother sent you along as his spy, didn't he? You didn't even fight back. Don't you have a mind of your own? Alice's lips trembled slightly, but she didn't reply. She picked up the fallen apple slices from the floor and tossed them into the trash. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, her voice breaking, what choice do I have? He's the sole heir of the Winstone family. Well, I'm just a foster daughter, kept around for some future business marriage. Do you think I don't want my own life? David, not everyone is born privileged like you, with endless chances to fail. All I can do is cling to the Winstone family to survive. Her words caught David off guard, and for a moment, he looked flustered. A crying beauty could unsettle even the hardest heart. All right, stop with the tears. You tricked me with that same pitiful act back then, he snapped. You're just like your brother, an expert at putting on a show. Get out. I don't want to see you. To my surprise, Alice wiped her tears and broke into a composed smile. Ah, so you saw through me. Well, I guess that's it for today's performance. Watching the interaction, I began to realize that perhaps the rumors about Alice's feelings for David weren't true after all. Had I misunderstood their relationship from the start? Pushing aside my thoughts, I stepped into the room. David's eyes lit up when he saw me, but his expression darkened the moment he noticed Nathan trailing behind me. Nathan Winstone, get out. I don't want to see you either, he spat. Nathan ignored him, placing an expensive gift box on the bedside table. A sly smile tugged at his lips. Well, still alive, are you, ex-husband? David's face twisted with rage, clutching his chest. Enjoy your victory while you can, Nathan Winstone. Your time to cry is coming. Nathan smirked. For someone your age, you sure lack composure. You should learn from me. Get married, settle down. Look at me, aren't I the picture of stability? Turning to me, he added with a playful glint in his eye, wife, don't you agree? Over time, I'd come to realize that Nathan's aloof demeanor was just a front. His true nature was sharp-tongued and, honestly, far more entertaining. Feeling 3 pairs of eyes on me, I smiled lightly. Husband, stop teasing him. If there's nothing more, let's head back. The company still needs you to handle some urgent matters. The reactions from David and Nathan couldn't have been more different. One seethed in silent fury, while the other beamed with satisfaction. Nathan Winstone's face lit up with delight, his joy barely contained as his inner thoughts rang loud and clear. What did she just call me? Husband. She called me husband. Excellent woman. You've caught my attention once again. This feels amazing. I'm transferring 10 million into her account later. Hearing his exaggerated internal monologue, I secretly rolled my eyes. One of these days, I'm going to gather all the CEO romance novels he secretly reads and burn them. But then my phone buzzed with a notification. Seeing the extra digits added to my account balance, I thought to myself, well, maybe those novels aren't entirely useless after all. David Smith, on the other hand, sat silently, his lips pressed into a thin line, his eyes brimmed with longing as he looked at me. Suddenly, he clutched his chest and groaned in exaggerated pain. Chelsea, it hurts so much. I think my broken rib shifted. Could you call the doctor for me, please? I hurried forward, lifting the blanket to check his injuries. Did you pull your stitches? It wasn't genuine concern, I just didn't want to endure another scolding if something happened to him. David's expression contorted in pain, but beneath the blanket, his hands reached for mine, holding on pitifully. Seeing you makes me feel better already, he murmured softly. Chelsea, it's so cold in this hospital. Can't you stay with me a little longer? We've known each other for so many years. Even if we weren't meant to grow old together, can't you sit with me for a while? I'm sure Nathan is mature enough not to mind, right? Nathan's expression darkened as he yanked me back into his arms, feigning calm. My wife is free to do whatever she wants. As her husband, I'll always support her decisions. But his thoughts told a very different story. What the hell? You little snake, touching my wife's hand right in front of me. Do you think I'm dead? Wait, does Chelsea actually like the type over the CEO type? This changes everything. Tonight, I'm asking Alice to teach me everything about tactics. Nathan's hands balled into fists, his knuckles cracking as he stepped forward, grabbing David by the collar with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. David Smith, let me check which rib of yours is out of place. David's face paled as he turned to me with wide, watery eyes. Chelsea, your husband is so scary. Are you sure he's not abusive? Come back to me, and I'll save you from this misery. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Inside, watching these two men squabble was like dealing with overgrown children fighting for attention. Alice Winstone, alarmed by the rise tension, stepped forward to intervene. Brother, remember, just slap him a couple of times to get it out of your system. Don't kill him, okay? If you do, all 3 of us will be scolded tonight. I blinked. Excuse me? David's composure broke completely. Alice, did you ever mean it when you said you liked me? Was that all a lie? Alice awkwardly poked her fingers together, smiling sheepishly. David, I'm sorry. I'm actually a brother-obsessed girl. She shrugged with a light laugh. To be honest, I was just a tool to break you and Chelsea up. Mission accomplished, though. So, goodbye. The atmosphere shifted into something bizarrely surreal, and finally, everything clicked. No wonder Alice always looked at me with sparkles in her eyes. She had been helping Nathan this whole time, quietly working to sabotage my relationship with David. I thought back to the first time I met her. Her opening line had been, "Why don't you chase after another guy?" I'd assumed she was trying to steal David from me, so I ignored her. Who would have guessed she was trying to push me toward her brother instead? Said David, looking at me pitifully, his voice trembling. Chelsea, see? I told you there's nothing between me and Alice. I'm innocent. He tried to sit up, only to accidentally pull at his wound, grimacing in pain as he slumped back onto the bed with a groan. I shook my head, a faint smile tugging at my lips. David Smith, you still don't understand why I broke up with you, do you? Our breakup wasn't impulsive or rash. It was the result of countless small disappointments. David's indifference had often extinguished my enthusiasm. He was so accustomed to being the center of the universe, expecting me to revolve around him, to sacrifice everything for his sake. He thrived on being idolized, basking in the way I chased after him like he was the moon in the night sky. But eventually, the imbalance in our relationship became unbearable. David assumed he had He wrapped around his finger that no matter how he treated me, the occasional crumb of affection would always bring me back. What he failed to realize was that hearts aren't made of stone. Flowers bloom brightly when nurtured with love, but they wither and die in the absence of care. When disappointment accumulates enough, it reaches a breaking point. I had loved David Smith, but that was in the past. My mother once said that when choosing someone to spend your life with, it's better to pick someone who loves you than someone you love. Back then, I hadn't understood her words, but now I did. Someone who loves you will answer every call, respond to every question, even if you say something as mundane as, "Did you eat yet?" They'll reply enthusiastically, "Wife, I had ribs today. A bit salty, though, so I drank extra water." Someone who loves you will notice when the weather turns cold and prepare new clothes for the season before you even realize it. They'll remember all your preferences, indulge your little quirks, and offer guidance when you're lost. When faced with criticism from others, they'll stand in front of you, shielding you, and making you feel safe. Love, like nurturing flowers, requires patience and care. Nathan and Alice slipped out of the room, leaving David and me alone. David, his emotions barely contained, finally asked, "Is there really no future for us, Chelsea? I know I wasn't mature enough before. I didn't know how to love, but I've changed. I want a future with you. But some things, once missed, are lost forever," I said softly. "David, you were my past. Nathan is my present, and I've learned that treasuring what I have now is the right choice." When I stepped out of the hospital room, I found Nathan waiting for me at the door. His gaze was tender, and his movements gentle as he carefully wrapped a scarf around my neck. "It started snowing just now," he said softly. "I was worried you'd feel cold, so I had someone bring a scarf for. Are you?" His inner thoughts, however, told a different story. "I hope she doesn't soften toward that scumbag in there. Woman, I won't let that happen, not on my watch. Also, wife, can I hold your hand just for a little while?" I glanced out the window, watching snowflakes drift lazily to the ground. My heart, however, was anything but cold. To Nathan's surprise, I reached out and took his hand, intertwining my fingers with his. His palm was warm, and his broad shoulders exuded a steady reassurance. This business marriage, I realized, wasn't so bad after all. We strolled under the softly falling snow, our footsteps leaving faint imprints on the fresh white blanket. Nathan appeared calm, but I could sense the turmoil behind his composed expression. His thoughts were likely a mess. How do I explain everything to her? Should I just tell her the truth now? After what seemed like an internal battle, he finally broke the silence. "Chelsea," he began hesitantly, "I've been keeping something from you. There's a secret I've wanted to tell you for a long time. I've actually liked you for years." I stopped walking, turning toward him with wide eyes. His arm slipped around my waist, holding me gently yet firmly. "I've been looking for the right time to tell you but never found the courage," he continued. "The truth is, when the Heaton family first proposed this marriage alliance, they didn't choose me. I was the one who begged my father to intervene. I promised him immense returns, convincing him to push the Heaton family to choose me instead." I nodded slightly, encouraging him to go on. Seeing my response, his voice grew nervous, even a bit unsteady. "The first time I saw you, my heart raced like crazy, and after that, every little thing you did affected my emotions. That's when I realized I'd fallen for you. At the time, you were always chasing after David Smith, and all I could do was watch you quietly from the sidelines." He pulled out his Ph.1 and handed it to me. On the screen were countless photos of me, some from years ago. The first one caught my attention. It was of me back in college, standing on a stage delivering a speech as a top freshman. My expression was youthful and full of promise. Nathan continued, his voice soft. "We went to the same university, different majors though, so we never really crossed paths. I admired you from afar but didn't want to disturb your life, so I just kept quietly noticing you, never daring to approach. One day, Alice stumbled upon my journal and discovered my feelings for you. She laughed at how timid I was and promised to help me win you over. Curious, I asked, why didn't you try pursuing me yourself?" Nathan gently ruffled my hair, his smile tinged with bitterness. "Because back then, your eyes were only filled with David Smith. There wasn't any room for anyone else. You don't know how much I envied him. I envied the way you looked at him, the way you chased after him. I wished it could have been me." He paused briefly before continuing, "When I heard your mother was ill, I visited her immediately. Later, when I found out you and David had broken up, I thought maybe I had a chance. What I didn't expect was for your mother to agree to my proposal for a marriage alliance." He smiled, his eyes softening. Your mother probably saw through my feelings for you long before I even said anything. Chelsea, I really, really like you. I didn't marry you because of the business alliance. It's because it was you. You were the reason I wanted this arrangement. I only regret that I never got to have the kind of love story that starts with a confession and blossoms into a romance. But now I'm wondering, would you allow me to turn this business marriage into a lifetime of love? His voice trembled ever so slightly as he gazed at me, his eyes full of hope and sincerity. I smiled and nodded gently. Nathan's face lit up with uncontainable joy. He scooped me into his arms, spinning me around in the snow. I'm going to make my wife the happiest woman alive. Chelsea, I love you. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.